Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Erik, Janeczko. I'm head coach and CEO at Maximum Acceleration, and I'm joined by my special friend and guest, Mr. Matt Hansen, who is the president, CEO, and founder of Simple Nexus. And today's program is about helping you understand how to compete in a mobile world. Today, we're going to be sharing with you some of the mobile marketing solutions and how to mobilize your mortgage business and how to engage in the mobile world. Like I said, my name is Erik Janeczko. I'm head coach and CEO of Maximum Acceleration, and I'm pleased and honored to be able to share with you this program on how to really compete in the mobile world and why it's so important that you think about how to mobilize your mortgage business. So here's what comes down to it, right? We've been coaching and training mortgage and real estate professionals for the better part of about 12 years under the umbrella of Maximum Acceleration. One of the things that we've realized is we live in a different world today than we did 10 to 12 years ago. I mean, the challenge today, if you really think about it, is the game's changed. Whether we like it or not, we live in a different world. The reason is because people buy differently today than they did 10, 12, 15 years ago. I mean, back in 2000 when I was originating as a, still producing originator, doing 15, 20 loans a month with myself and my personal production team, it was easy to go to real estate agents and talk to them about value of service and what we could do to help them close loans. And realtors controlled 80% of the lead flow in those days. Today, that dynamic has flipped upside down, 360 or 180 degrees different today. I mean, the marketing style of the 70s and 80s and 90s of the presentation and the all about the deal and how we communicate has changed. I mean, think about, when was the first time you got an email account? When was the first time you thought about having a personal website? I mean, in the late 90s, having a website was a really cool, new, and very expensive thing. It was rare that anybody had a website. Now, if somebody can't Google you, you're not in business. And the pace of information has more than quadrupled in the busyness and craziness of our lives. It's estimated that the average American receives over 50,000 solicitation or marketing messages on a daily basis today. 20 years ago, it was less than 5,000 alerts or advertisements, and it was easier for people to catch your attention. Now, it's just noise. I mean, think about how many hundreds of emails a day you receive each and every single day, and how much, if you're not literally staring at your inbox when that marketing message comes across, do you even see the email, or does it get deleted in bulk at the end of the day, right? Well, how is that any different when you, as a mortgage professional, are trying to create awareness and promote yourself and your company to your community and your potential buyers or homeowners or refinance customers? Well, because it's all noise, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to be shouted at. So how do we change that model? I mean, let's be honest. The traditional sales model is broken. The show up and throw up presentation model doesn't work in today's environment. So we have to think about how the game has changed around us and how we have to change the game when it comes to mobile marketing. So what are the one thing that we still pay attention to? What are the things that catch our attention today? I mean, we're more married to our phones than we are our spouses in a lot of cases today, right? I mean, think about how often it is that we jump in to whatever's going on our phone, our little mini computers that we all carry around today, right? So what does it mean to be effective and communicate in a mobile world in which we live? Matt, why don't you share some of what you found out when you started Simple Nexus?
Yeah, well, Simple Nexus started out really as a favor for family who are all in the mortgage industry, and they needed more ways to market themselves. And then they came to me and asked me, because my background is in technology and has been for a very long time. But we were able to come up with something that was so effective for them that it spread to their coworkers and to their coworkers' workers, and coworkers. It just continued to spread. So it turned out to be a very effective mechanism the way we started. That was years and years ago, and we've advanced a long ways since then. And we found more ways to communicate. For example, you mentioned, the noise. Borrowers have so much noise coming at them that it's not uncommon for people to have thousands of unread emails within their inbox. What do they do when they wake up? They check their phone. I mean, and this study right here is from 2.5 years ago, and it's only gotten bigger. We've got. I mean, I know I personally, I'm checking my phone during this presentation. I mean, it's crazy.
Me too.
We're all on our phones. We're all on our phones all the time, and through the system, we're able to communicate to people, to your borrowers through push notifications, which they haven't learned how to ignore yet. So it's a great way to communicate. On top of that, the mobile is where most of the emails opened by far. So this chart here, it's just at a glance, you can see mobile right there specifically defined as 47%. The part that's not as clear is that there's a yellow line called webmail, and that is almost entirely also attributed to mobile. It's just hard to give a hard definition on that. So we're looking at mobile being the overwhelming majority of where people are viewing their information. And if you don't have a way to present yourself in that medium, it's tough. We also find that or they open your app, or they communicate with you, in any way. The conversion rates double from mobile to desktop. Mobile doubles what you would convert on desktop. That being said, there's also the flip side of that, and that is that if you are not mobile ready, it's like 75% of them will just leave your site and look for one that is mobile ready. It's crazy. The numbers are just staggering, and I think it's gone beyond the stage of calling it a trend.
Right, exactly. I mean, think about it from this perspective, guys. You look at your phone, and when you see a website link in an email or a text message or a push notification, you click on that link, and it takes you to a website that doesn't display well on your device. How long do you stay, right? The mobile trend is an emerging trend that we have to pay attention to. Just as important as it is to have a professional website today, it's every bit as important that you have a mobile presence. Internet, web page, and email, as important as it is to be a functional business professional in today's environment, it will not be too many years down the road where mobile is going to be every bit as important, if not more so. And that's the dynamic and the trend of where things are going. So if you don't have a mobile presence as a mortgage professional, will you be left behind? The second thing that you've got to think about is what is the dynamic of the changes, and why do we need to focus on a different way of engaging and communicating through a mobile device? Well, one of the things we all have to begin to realize is if we want a stable, sustainable, long-term growth business as a mortgage professional, we've got to focus on the type of business that's going to be there, resilient to any markets. I mean, let's be honest. We all know rates go up, rates come down, rates get bad, rates get worse, and that can drive volume. But the challenge is when rates are not good, and when you don't have a flood of refinance volume falling out of the trees into your lap, what do you have to do to be effective and communicate in a world where it's a much more complicated purchase transaction than the easy, quick refinance? I mean, let's be honest. What is the sales cycle of a typical refinance situation? I mean, the typical refinance cycle is it's a 1 or 2 day conversation, very quick, very very fast decision for the customer. The deal makes sense or it doesn't. They decide to move forward. You close the loan and get a paycheck 30 to 45 days later. How much longer is the sales cycle in a purchase environment, and how much more connected do you have to be with the consumer when they are thinking about moving? I mean, in a purchase environment, it's a much longer, much more extended process for the consumer. So you've got to be prepared to be much more engaged, much more involved, and much more effectively communicate with the buyer. So what is it that your buyers want in their mobile experience? How do your buyers want to be communicated with? I mean, think about it from this perspective. What do smartphone users vote on? What are the things that they pay attention to, and what are the things that they want?
Yeah, what we found is that when smartphone users are using their phones, there are also some other, not only are their phones important to be on, but how you are on their phone matters a lot. So we'll have mobile websites. That's very, very important to make sure your website is mobile. Absolutely important. But there's another interesting number that also comes into play there, and that's the trend we're seeing here in the amount of time people spend on their phone and where they spend the time on their phone. And you can see, I mean, we're looking at, load, and they're in and out. They go and get information, they're in and out. The mobile. All right, so what we found is that people want to spend time on their apps, we know that, but where do they spend time on their phones? They want relevant information, they want it right away, and they want to spend time on their phone in a blazing fast environment. While mobile websites are really, really important, they don't provide that experience yet. They probably will in the future, but right now the trend is actually going that people are spending more time within mobile apps than they are mobile websites or web-based apps that maybe are a little bit choppy. They're not fluid, they're not blazing fast. They just don't provide that premium experience that you want to give your borrowers and your referral partners. So that's why we work hard to provide that experience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and if you guys think about the flow of the conversation, okay, so you meet somebody who's interested in buying a property, you need to capture that lead, convince them that, and help them understand that you're the best resource to help them with that purchase transaction. That then leads to the loan application and pre-qualification process, which then integrates through. But what do the borrowers really expect or want in their communication at that stage? So put yourself in the mind of a borrower for just a moment. What are their fears? What are their anxieties? What are their concerns? What are they afraid of? What do they want? Well, they want a couple of things. One, they want to have quick, accurate answers to what they can or cannot afford, qualify for. Two, they want good communication and relevant information about how to simplify or shorten the search and home buying process and how you can be the asset and resource that helps them do that. So is it good enough to just have an app that is just a digital business card? Or do you need something more than that? Matt, what's been your experience?
Well, we started out as a digital business card. That's how we started 4.5 years ago. But there was a demand for a higher level of engagement. We were getting that from the LOs. We were getting that from the borrowers. We were getting it from referral partners. We talked to all of them. We talked to all of them every single day. And what we found was that referral partners wanted to embed their own web search within the app. They wanted to be an open house, and they wanted to provide something that had their own contact info and their home search. And so they felt like that they weren't going to just lose contact with this person by referring them or getting them moved along in the loan process. So the other part that we found is that borrowers want to see how their loan's progressing. They want to see, they want to be able to upload conditions using their app, and that's where we've really moved hard towards and feel very good about where we've come.
Right. So it's not just a place where they can look up your information, which, would people, care to have an app that only did that? Yeah, but they aren't going to use it all that often other than when they actually need to just pick up the phone and call you. However, if you have a more engaging and more effective communication tool that starts at the first point of contact with a potential buyer and works all the way through to even 30, 60, 90 days after closing their first loan with you, as well as maybe even on into the future, maintaining that relationship long term, what value does that create for you? And one other thing, Matt, you mentioned that is a critical component of this is the referral partners. The business development partners is what we call them here at Maximum Acceleration, partly because of the fact that we wanted to shift that relationship from being on the taking side of the relationship to the giving. I mean, let's be honest, guys. What's the biggest challenge as originators you have with working with? In fact, many originators don't even really like working with realtors. They consider it kind of a necessary evil, right? But in a purchase market, it's a practical reality, is it not? So what do we have to think about? Well, one of the things we want to think about is how can we be an asset and resource to those business development professionals like realtors? Well, one of the things I've used for years to explain kind of the partnership concept is think about this for a moment. When I was a kid growing up in central Missouri near St. Louis area, we had these the Budweiser Clydesdales in every Christmas and Thanksgiving parade throughout history as a kid growing up. And I was just always fascinated by these animals, right? So in high school, I did a research paper on what was going on. Well, I came across a study from the late 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s, where a group of scientists went out and started studying weight sled testing. It was what was called the horsepower studies. Go figure, right? Anyway, but what they found out is that the average draft horse could pull about 12,000 pounds of pull. Well, the reality is if you had two horses working independently, you'd expect at least double the results, right? Well, the scientists ran into a little bit of a problem when they tried to scale the study up. The record is over 104,000 pounds of pull, or roughly 8 times the result of one pulling by themselves. So if you think about the dynamic between the typical loan officer and realtor relationship, I mean, how many loan officers are out there promising good rates, variety of programs, and great service, which really is kind of a minimum expectation, is it not? I mean, and let's be honest, how many other loan officers before you have promised it and failed to deliver it? So does that really elevate or lower your credibility as a result? But let's look at the dynamic between the typical realtor and loan officer. Even if it is a symbiotic relationship, if there is the tit for tat, I send you a lead, you send me a lead, and we keep a scorecard type relationship that can often develop, you're still only talking 30 leads or so each to be shared if you can effectively share it equally, right? But if we actually get the two, loan officer and realtor, working together in concert as true partners in making a difference for borrowers in the community and families in the community, well, what's it look like? Well, the kind of leverage that could be created could potentially be as much as 120 leads a month. Now, some of you may think I'm completely nuts when I say that, but as I introduce you to the next couple of concepts, and as Matt shares with you how that mobile integration works and how that engages customers, I think you'll begin to realize that that number's not that far-fetched to begin with. So at this point, ask yourself the question, even if you think it's not practical or possible, what would it look like if it was able to be done? Well, one of the other things I realized in part of that process is that there's some mechanics and physics involved in that horsepower relationship. One of them is a simple machine called a lever. Here's the problem with the lever, though. If it's not used properly, it doesn't work, right? I mean, if I have that pivot point right in the middle of that bar, I can push down with 100 pounds of force over here. I only get 100 pounds of lift over here. But what happens if I move that thing a couple of feet to one side? All of a sudden, 100 pounds of force gives me 1,000 pounds of lift because I'm applying leverage effectively. So what becomes the leverage of you as an originator working with a realtor business development partner? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. By the way, one of the things you might notice about an effective partnership, and you can actually see this in the example of the horsepowers, for example, one of the things you might have noticed about the picture of the horse, they have blinders on, right? They're totally focused on going in one common direction, right? There's no looking left or right or diffusion of value. They're totally focused on a common goal, which is one of the key elements of an effective partnership. Secondly is they're sharing the load equally, and they're working together in a complementary fashion. Now, how we do that in a relationship or sales environment is through endorsement and edification and value building. And the fourth opportunity is we look externally as a team, how can we make a bigger difference in the community? So like, for example, one of the things that Simple Nexus and Matt, you put together, and it was a brilliant development in your world, is lead capture, right? So Matt, share a little bit about how Simple Nexus helps loan officers and real estate agents capture leads effectively.
Yeah, well, this is this is where it gets distributed by a variety of parties. One of those, for example, is the referral partner. If they're an open house, and this is a really easy sell with TRID, so I'm going to just back up a little bit and say, with TRID right now, you've got a really easy sell with your referral partners. Okay, say, look, our time frames just got tighter. That's going to mess everything up for both of us as far as timelines go. But what we can do is we can try and find extra ways to get these loans moving faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put your information within the app so that when you're in an open house, people have a way to contact you. But let's work on getting them pre-approved. They don't have to use me, but let's get them pre-approved quick, and let's get that process moving along. So give them this app. They'll be able to see your contact info, my contact info. We'll be aware of when they use the system, and then share it out with them. And they can start uploading docs to me right away. We've got a better than fax document or system set up that works fully with LOS. Anyway, the main point is that we can help get loans closed faster, and at the same time capture more referrals, and that's important.
And one of the easy ways to do that, for example, is SimpleNexus app has a QR code generator built in that allows the consumer, the home buyer who is walking through that open house, to take their phone and snap a shot of the QR code, which immediately puts the app on their phone and allows you to start marketing and dripping to them through the app communication tool. I mean, one of the key elements of this is how we leverage you as an originator, how you leverage yourself as a business. Now think about what the dynamic of that could do with helping that agent get more listing appointments, for example, right? You know, now they have a way of talking to a family that's trying to sell a home about how they have a mobile communication tool that allows them to capture more buyers and more quickly and at a higher price sell that property. You help a realtor have a tool that allows them to gain extra listings, and they're going to love you forever. I mean, what it really comes down to is we know that we're in a highly competitive world, right? I mean, according to NMLS, there are over 394,000 originators in the United States. So how do you separate, differentiate yourself? How do you stand out, compete in that environment? Well, one of the key ways of doing it is being more to them, being more accessible, being more valuable, being an asset and resource that helps them gain more business. You know, at the end of the day, am I a vendor? Or am I an asset and resource to help their growth? I mean, think about it from this perspective. Let's say I win the lottery and I've got $10,000 to invest. You know, I can open an account on E-Trade. I can buy $100 a share, 100 shares of a $100 per share company, but I'm sink or swim on my own. Yeah, I'll only pay $10 a trade, but what's my likelihood of success? Whereas if I go to a full-service advisor who's going to work with me to evaluate out of the hundreds of companies I could potentially invest in, which ones are a good buy right now? Well, yeah, I'll probably spend $150 to $200 for that exact same 100 shares of that exact same $100 per share company that I could have bought on E-Trade. But how knowledgeable am I, and can I know? You know, and what if that advisor takes it one step further and says, you know what, I don't think buying individual stocks is a great idea right now, Eric. Maybe you ought to think about getting rid of some of that consumer debt first, freeing up some cash flow and saving over a longer horizon of time. Now he's made a much bigger difference than the likely benefit of any one individual transaction. You know, it comes down to a simple concept called book carrying. And you guys have all heard this before, right? People won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I get criticized for that sometimes because it's kind of trite, it's cliche, right? Well, here's the reality of it, though. Would it have been repeated often enough to be ignored if it weren't fundamentally true? Can we afford to dismiss those truths we hear all the time? Well, there's another law of caring, and that is we don't know until someone cares enough to show us. So agents thinking about how to help them accelerate their growth and how you could be an asset and resource to realtors in a way that goes so far above and beyond the vendor level of just getting a deal done. When you become the asset and resource that helps them accelerate their business growth, what does that look like? Well, one of the options that SimpleNexus affords you is a whole lot of additional integration. And there's a couple of different layers that we'll go into here in just a little bit as to what that dynamic really looks like. But it's how you solidify that partnership with that agent, to be able to approach them, to be able to catch their attention, and be able to get them to realize something way more to them than just the guy who gets their deals done. You want to be the guy who helps them get a lot more deals through the integration of the mobile communication device. I mean, this is a comprehensive mobile communication solution for mortgage professionals. So when we start to think about what's some of the leverage components of that effective relationship?
What is that?
So one of the questions that's often asked is, what do agents want? How can we be that leverage for the agent that helps them get substantially more business? Well, there's 4 key concepts I want to introduce you to, and this is something we spend a lot of time working on with one-on-one coaching clients in a small group environment. But Simple Nexus is a key asset resource that we highly recommend to our clients for this purpose, because if you really think about it, what is one of the first and most important requirements of an agent that an agent has, a real estate agent has of you as an originator? Well, one of the first ones is they don't want to waste time on deals that aren't going anywhere. We all know that buyers have a tendency, especially in a hot market where there's a limited supply of properties, they want to jump ahead of the game. They want to get in, they become almost desperate, and they feel like they have to get in contract right away because they feel like properties are going to disappear before they can blink an eye and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times, the agents and loan officers we have a tendency to get squeezed into this sort of pressure plate environment, right? Well, the reality is, not all buyers are created equal, right? In fact, how many out of 10 actually are ready to get started right away? What we typically find is buyers fall into one of 4 primary buckets. Only 1 or 2 fall in the ready to go now, easy to approve bucket. Some are questionable. We need to really identify and do a more thorough review of documentation and what they actually can qualify for, because they're right on the fence, and a couple of differences in dollars a month in income pushes them out or into the ability to qualify. The third bucket is the leads that they're not ready now, but we could work with them. They've got minor barriers to qualifying that with the right coaching and guidance and support they could get ready in 6 months or so, maybe a little less. And then, of course, there's the fourth bucket of, well, they're probably so far out or so massive of a challenge that they're probably never going to be ready to buy. So which ones do the realtors care about, right? Well, they care about the green buckets. That's all they should care about. So when you communicate as an originator through an access and efficient tool that allows us to bring a deal in, we're able to very quickly communicate with the borrower, get the vital information we need efficiently and effectively to be able to sort them out. Right? So you can promise to your agents that you're going to save them time where they're not wasting time on anybody who's not 100% ready to buy, but they're going to work with the green buckets only. Well, what that also allows us to do is ones that are maybes, but I need to do more looking, or the ones that are, with the right kind of coaching and guidance could be brought back to them later. We're able to create a flow of future opportunities out of these 2 additional buckets that would be deals they wouldn't otherwise have, by helping them with, 1, prioritizing their time for the ready nows, and 2, bringing back to them those leads for the future. So one of the ways that we do that, Matt, why don't you share with them a little bit of how this works with the Simple Nexus app?
Yeah, well, one of the first areas that we started out was the calculators. For years now, we've had really incredible calculators that help them get right down to the penny with MI and everything on all the different loan types, and that's something we've gotten very good at. We know loan limits by county. We send you information about what scenarios they're running, and so you're able to get the insight as to what they're looking at. Now that has another side benefit in that we've seen loan officers who pay attention to this have saved loans. We have a guy named Bill who he had a borrower who was looking for a new home. The borrower went to a builder, and the builder said, "No, well, you got to get pre-approved through my loan officer. That's how we do things here." And so Bill thought that the borrower was gone. He thought it was over. He lost them. And one night he got notifications, because we send out these notifications instantly, that the borrower had opened up the app and was running some calculations. So the next morning, the borrower ran some more calculations. So Bill went in, looked at the calculations, and there were just slight modifications. He thought maybe the borrower had a question about his payments, and so Bill just called him. Said, "Hey, I don't know the borrower's name. Hey Tom, I was just thinking about you. Is there anything I can do to help out? Can I answer any questions? Do you have any concerns? And Tom says, no, I don't have any concerns. Why do you ask? And Bill said, well, sometimes people have questions about their payment, like mortgage insurance and how that affects something that they were planning on. And Tom, Bill was correct in his assessment of what the data he was looking at, in saying the borrower said, yeah, well, I did have a question about mortgage insurance, and I wasn't expecting that, and now it's kind of put a little kink in my financial planning. And so Bill said, well, there are some other options we can take a look at. Have you heard about lender-paid MI? And the guy said, no. Bill said, well, how about this? He said, you don't need to use me to get your loan done or anything like that, but I would like to help. And so come on in, and I'll just explain some of the different scenarios that are available for you. And the guy came in. Bill ended up closing that loan. Now, whether this was the reason or not is too hard to say, but it did spark the conversation and bring that loan back around. So that's a valuable tool to use in your arsenal.
More importantly, guys, it keeps them engaged in working with you and communicating. Bill would have never had that information or that level of insight into what the borrower was thinking if it hadn't have been for the fact that he received a notification in his dashboard that the borrower was playing with scenarios. Now, there's another major advantage to this if you think about the timing of the lead intake. As an originator, how many thousands of hours have you spent over the last couple of years answering silly, minute variance questions for borrowers who are, what if I did $500 down instead of $1,000? How much would it cost me, right? How many times do we get nickel and dime to death on those kind of silly questions as originators, and how many countless hours do we have to spend with borrowers doing that, where if we had a tool that did that for us and still kept us engaged and top of mind and branded with those originators, it would be extremely valuable. One other element of it.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but
go ahead.
That's absolutely right. I mean, Google has a mortgage calculator, okay? But you know what's going to happen is people are going to go to Google. You could go to Google and search mortgage calculator. But if you go to Google and you search mortgage calculator, you'll get one. You'll get a mortgage calculator. It's terrible. It's ridiculous. And people are going to come to you and they're going to be mad at you because that mortgage calculator was totally wrong. And ad didn't even have your branding on it. But instead, if you can give them your own mortgage calculator, then they can be running the scenarios. You know what the heck they're doing. And they're getting accurate data, and like Erik said, you're not spending time. You can go watch a movie with your family. You don't have to step out 3 times to change somebody's payment by $40.
Exactly. The other element of this too is you think about the intake process. How many times is it that we're looking at a potential borrower who's just on the fence, and we really do need to see the actual income, credit, and asset documents to be able to effectively do the pre-qualification at all. I mean, I don't know how many times in my career I've looked at borrowers that were so close to the edge of the line, especially when they're trying to push their qualification to the maximum amount, that I can't give an accurate pre-qualification without full documentation. Well, what if I had a solution that allowed the borrower to very quickly just snap a picture of their pay stub with their phone and get it to me so that I can analyze the income documentation effectively and be able to give them a much more accurate assessment of whether they can or cannot qualify? That's one of the key elements of engagement that we want to look at. The next thing we want to do is we want to boost credibility for when you think about how you embed yourself as a key asset resource in that agent's business, is what do we do with the someday maybe leads, and how do we create more credibility for them? We all know that, well, if you don't know this or not, and maybe this is news to you, the number one place that loan officers lose purchase deals is not after contract. It's from pre-qual to contract is 90% of the time where you're going to lose a customer. So if you're not communicating effectively with those customers during that shopping phase of the home buying experience, what's the likelihood that they forget about you 60, 90 days later, and by the time they actually find contract, they've forgotten about you completely? Through the dashboard and through the Simple Nexus app, it's literally a one-click communication to pop up a notification on their phone that interfaces with the client in that way. Also, Simple Nexus is built in, and this is one of the things I'm kind of proud of that I had some influence over. Matt and I talked a couple of months ago about how cool it would be if we had a kind of a drip warm-up and a valuable content information resource. So we put together push notifications that are lead warm-up in nature. There are specific messages that are automatically triggered to show up on that customer's phone during that shopping phase that automatically are delivered for you. You don't even have to think about it. It's putting your warm-up and client retention marketing during that critical shopping phase on autopilot. Of course, Matt, you have, I don't know how many numerous times in our conversation stressed the importance of compliance. It's also Simple Nexus and how that works.
Yeah, well, we're very focused on compliance. I mean, we worked with dozens and dozens of companies now with their compliance departments directly, making sure that it fits your company's needs as far as compliance goes. And we have, I mean, there are a variety of scenarios. I'm sure you all know that as you get going through these compliance, the different scenarios for compliance, two companies can have the same attorney in Washington, and the companies will still have completely different interpretations on what the compliant thing is to do. So we have an incredible amount of options for you from a compliance standpoint. Now that being said, we do have a really strong basic set of compliance. So the smaller companies or the individual brokers who don't have a large team, going through all of this for them, can make sure that they're compliant. And one thing, just to show you an example on how we're up to date, our latest version has TIP to make sure that that your calculations are accurate. I know everybody's upset about TIP, but we got to put it in there, or the CFPB is not going to be happy. So yeah, we're very aware of what needs to be in the app, what needs to be where, and then we also give you and your compliance department's control over that.
Definitely. So not only are you making sure that you have the information you need in front of your customers when you need it in front of your customers, but your compliance department's going to be happy with it as well because it meets all of the NMLS and CFPB compliance rules in the way it's communicated. So what's the other layer of opportunity? Well, one of the best opportunities to help and support your business development partners is really with the endorsement and education component of helping capture deals. Obviously, it's important to have an efficient process and to be able to communicate with originators. The Simple Nexus app fully integrates with most of the popular LOS systems, Encompass and Calyx and those ones, to where the information can be gathered efficiently through the mobile communication device and fed into your LOS system with little or no stress. It also, once a borrower gets into contract, keeps the borrowers informed and the agents informed of where they are in the process with status updates and push notifications. It allows the borrower to have access to a library of information resources with a glossary and library of terms explaining most important concepts that consumer questions. I mean, it's what are the 20 questions you get asked every time by every borrower most of the time, right? Well, those are embedded in the information library and glossary that's also built into the application itself. Like I said, it's a complete end-to-end communication solution. But one of the other great ways that we can help and be really a true asset and resource to our business development partners, our realtors, is to be the source that helps them have more professionalism and credibility with those buyers that we're introducing them to. But the most important opportunity is if you ask agents what they want, 99% of the time the agent's going to tell you leads. More business is what they really want. Now, a lot of times agents have thrown that up as a defensive mechanism to push back and dismiss or get out of conversations with loan officers, because traditionally most loan officers have struggled to figure out how they could generate leads organically for agents. So how do we do that? What does that look like, right? Well, I mean, one of the things that we look at is, think about mining for additional referrals or service opportunities. And at the end of the day, finding a borrower, finding a customer who needs our help buying a home can be a little bit like mining for gold, right? You got to dig up tens of thousands of tons of dirt and sift it through a wash plant to come out with the little nuggets of gold that are worth thousands of dollars an ounce. So how do we do that effectively in a purchased environment, right? Well, why do people move? Think about it from that perspective. Why do they need you, right? Who needs you, for example? Well, I mean, we know that most people don't really like to move, right? I mean, moving is kind of a painful process. Who wants to put their entire life in a box and live that way for 6 months? It's kind of a pain in the neck. But why do people move, right? Why do people change or improve their housing situation? Well, usually it's driven by life events like wanting to move from renting to actually putting money towards something they will eventually own. You know, if they're paying $1,000 a month in rent, that's $60,000 every 5 years. That's literally being flushed down a toilet they are never going to own. Of course, there's the relocations due to job opportunities or career advancement that are required and force people to move. There's people who want to buy investment real estate as a potential asset building or net worth building or income building opportunity. There's people who have experienced career advancement and are making a lot more money now than they did 6 months ago. It's all driven by those life events that cause a situation where the home they're in is no longer a great fit for the family, and the pain of staying is more than the pain of moving. Well, there's a couple of things we know about that from a historical perspective, right? You know, the National Association of Realtors has been tracking home buying opportunity and home affordability for the better part of the last 70 or 80 years. Since the early 50s, they've been tracking that information. And the average time frame of ownership and housing affordability has ranged pretty much consistently between every 5 to 7 years. So we know that every buyer we're working with knows approximately 5 to 7 people that are already thinking about moving. And here's why we know that, right? Because sociologists have also been telling us for decades that the average American knows and talks to 30 to 35 people that they are on a close personal relationship with. They're people they talk to on a weekly basis. They're people that are on a not even just first name basis, but people that they see on a regular weekly basis, around 30 to 35 people. So if people move every 5 to 7 years, that means 1/5 to 1/7 of the population, or 13 to 20% of the population, are already thinking about moving. Because you don't wake up one day and decide you want to buy a house and you're in contract later that day, right? It takes longer than that. People think about it and talk about it for an extended period of time. The other thing we know about housing affordability is that we are literally, in the last year or two, experiencing some of the strongest housing affordability that have been seen in literally decades. And so when it comes to how much house they can get for how much monthly payment, we are in the top 5% of home affordability right now. And even if rates slide off 1.5 or 2 points and we start seeing rates even pushing in the mid to high 6s, home affordability is still going to be at the top 10% of the curve over the last 70 or 80 years, which means it's still going to be a good time to buy a home. So the more we can work with our business development partners to cast a huge net, I mean, I guess it goes back to kind of that fishing analogy I was thinking of or talking about. There's 2 ways to fish, right? One is with a rod and reel, the other is with a net. Well, if we can cast a big net, if we can engage and inspire our customers to care about and want to introduce this home affordability concept to their friends, family, and colleagues that they work with on a regular basis, we can launch something that can dramatically increase lead flow, that 8 times results, that 120 potential leads. And one of the most efficient and effective ways of doing that is through the mobile app. So Matt, talk for a few minutes, if you wouldn't mind, about how easy it is to share the Simple Nexus app and to encourage our clients to share this with that 5 to 7 people they know that are already thinking about buying a home or selling a home?
Yeah. Well, and to back up, this is a native app, but this can be shared with a simple web link, which is really interesting because generally when you have a web link, you're sharing a web page. But what happens is you can share it with somebody. You could be out at lunch. You can open up your app and you can share it with Brad, who you just ran into after 4 years, and say, hey, there's my contact info. Let me know how I can, if let's hook up and do lunch again sometime. Now they know what you do. They know how to get in touch with you. Really easy touch point. But the other thing is that when they download and install that app, it's going to automatically populate with your information in a native app, which means they've got a blazing fast environment. They've got access to incredible tools, and if they start a loan with you, it's also going to run right through the same platform. And they can open up the app and they can share it the same way.
Yeah, so something we're working on already in the background is just like those lead warm-up push notifications I mentioned a few minutes ago. So if your borrower shares their app with their buddy at work who was talking about buying a nicer house because he just got a promotion, he shares your app. Your app starts to then push lead warm-up notifications out to that friend at work, and now you're going viral. Behind the scenes, we're also building, it's not 100% ready yet, it'll be launched here in the next couple of months, but we are also building an opportunity mining. And by the way, asking for referrals, the reason we call it opportunity mining is because I'm not looking for referrals for a selfish benefit. I'm looking for opportunities to serve additional clients and to help them work through the challenging process of changing housing situation or upgrading housing situation. That's why I'm looking for a service opportunity, right? So what happens is we're going to actually, through the process, from first point of contact when that buyer downloads your app at the open house using the QR code, all the way through to months after they've closed that loan with you, we're going to be sending out opportunity mining type of push notifications, asking them who they know who might be in a position to benefit from an improvement or upgrade. What that in effect does is becomes that leverage that creates exponential growth. The one person who shares you with 2, who shares you with 4, who share you with 8 and 16, and it literally explodes exponentially from there. That's where we're creating massive leverage with business development partners, and we're achieving the goal of the 8 times results. So, guys, we've talked quite a bit about how important mobile is. We've talked quite a bit about how mobile can be leveraged to create much stronger and much deeper and much more committed partnerships with business development partners like realtors. We've talked about the benefits it creates for your consumers and how it's going to help you separate, differentiate yourself when it comes to buyer engagement and retention. So what does it look like? How do you get started? What are the next steps if you want to find out more about the Simple Nexus tool and how to create engagement and connection? Matt, would you share with us a little bit, how do they contact you and how do they move forward with getting this solution in place for themselves?
Yeah, just on the bottom of the screen. Call us or go to simplenexus.com/NMP and we'll go through and try and get a customized demo set up for you or for your company and show how we might help out with your how you envision mobile affecting your company in the future.
Right, definitely. And by the way, there's 2 options for that. One other thing you might want to be aware of, folks, Matt, you've mentioned before that you guys are safe and secure. I know data integrity and customer information protection is a major concern in today's environment. You guys recently went through an audit process, correct? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is a security audit that's the costs start at tens of thousands of dollars to get them done. I mean, you're paying for a full-fledged audit. You're paying for people whose life has been dedicated to security to come in and make sure that you're fitting the bill.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those brutal audit type situations where they kind of rip you apart and help you rebuild it from the ground up.
Oh, we have all kinds of new policies now. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's amazing what happens when it really helps you peel the lid back and look at the guts inside, right? Well, guys, there's a couple of different options for this, and we're almost done here, so hang with us for just a little bit more. I know many of you are asking the question and have asked the question already, how do I get started? And I guess the question I would ask you to encourage yourself to think about is, can you afford not to? I mean, the reality is we're talking about an app that at the top end of the market is only about $50 a month for commitment and engagement. And if you did only a handful of loans a year, you're at several thousand times return on investment on that. There is an option available. There are a couple of different levels of service available for the individual subscriber. There are also the layer of opportunities for an enterprise class solution that they will customize so that it becomes the XYZ mortgage app instead of the Simple Nexus app, and it's example mortgage company over all the branding and all the resources and tools, including the icon that actually is visible on the customer's phone when they've installed the app. What it really comes down to is how you use this tool to connect, communicate, and close more loans. So the last thing I want to ask you to do is think about one final step. Ideas without action are pretty useless, right? I mean, I don't care how great an idea is. I don't care how well you understand after watching today's program how important mobile is and how mobile could be leveraged to dramatically increase your lead flow. If you don't do anything with those ideas, you've just wasted the last 45 minutes. So ask yourself one thing to make sure that you put these ideas in action. One, what was the most valuable thing you heard in today's program? What do you want to move forward with first? You can always go back to the video and recording later and rewatch this program as many times as you need to pick up the additional concepts. But maybe the first step is going ahead and signing up. Second is, what action must you take to make that part of your daily business? Well, one, you got to set up, you got to purchase the app. Two, you got to set up your account and profile. Three, you got to get out there and start sharing it with folks and asking them to share it. And four, you've got to start talking with the agents about how that helps them capture more business. The third step then is, by when are you going to have that action implemented? Put a target date for completion of that action plan. It's only a handful of steps, probably 30 minutes to an hour, worst case, to get it set up and running. By when are you going to have it done? The fourth element is, who's going to be your accountability resource? And just so you know, by the way, if you do these four things, in 1993 there was a Brigham Young University research study that really studied what it took to get ideas in action. And they said basically, if you did these four things, if you pick a goal, you set a step-by-step action plan for completing the goal, you put target date milestones on those individual action items, and then you share that action plan with somebody and ask them to follow up with you regularly through the implementation, you have a 95% chance of implementing that idea and making it a part of what you do on a daily basis. So for myself and all the crew at simplenexus.com, we want to make sure that you're getting the tools, resources, and materials you need to be able to dramatically increase your capture and conversion ratio, to be able to help you be a better loan officer and do dramatically more volume. To that extent, if there's anything myself or Matt or the rest of the team here at Simple Nexus can do to help or support you in that growth, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Erik.